Fantasy Week 6 starts with a 36-24 win for the 49ers and a reminder of the golden rule that all three 49ers pass catchers are not allowed to have a good game in the same week. We welcome you to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I'm Adam Azer with Dave Richard and Jamie Eisberg, and here are two of my favorite stats for Week 6. Darnell Mooney has 8 catches of 20 or more yards. 8 of them. That is tied for the NFL lead. Drake London has 1. And Alvin Kamara has gone 46 straight games without a carry longer than 30 yards. He has gone 18 straight games without a 20-yard carry. Oh my gosh, that is bad. I just hope Spencer Rattler doesn't sink Alvin Kamara. Good morning, guys. Happy Friday, Dave Richard.
Hey, what's going on? Hope you didn't have Brandon Ayuk going in too many of your leagues, Adam.
I do not have Brandon Ayuk in a single league. Jamie, good morning. Happy Friday.
Humble brag.
If Joe Mixon comes back and has a strong season, are the third-round running backs the best value of any running backs that we have this year?
So who's included in there? Walker would be in there, who was good for non-PPR, but ridiculous for full PPR. Mixon would come back and be good. Who else is in there?
Kamara.
So I think it's more like fourth running backs, isn't it? But so the third. Okay, so starting with pick 25, Achane, Jacobs, Mixon, Rashad White, Kamara, Ken Walker. Yeah, it's really more like third round. It's pretty good. That's really good.
I don't know if Rashad White's going to hold up.
That's the
Hopefully Jacobs.
They're not all going to be perfect. I thought James Cook might be in that range too.
Cook was 21st in ADP, CBS ADP. Yep. No, it was a great range. They were going even later than that at the beginning of the process. All right, let's talk about San Francisco 36, Seattle 24. Before we do that, though, let me just tell you which games we're talking about today because I screwed up the games yesterday. So we are covering.
You sure you're good today?
No, I'm not. I'm like 40% confident. Jacksonville at Chicago. I meant to get to that one yesterday. Arizona at Green Bay. Tampa at New Orleans. Detroit at Dallas. Atlanta, Carolina. Cincinnati at the Giants. Giants are 1-14 in prime time since Daniel Jones became the starting quarterback. 1-14. Houston is at New England. That's the game I meant to get to yesterday. All right. San Francisco 36, Seattle 24. You have 5 minutes to recap this game. Jordan Mason left with a shoulder injury, and you've got an 8% rostered Isaac Guerrero and a report that Christian McCaffrey is targeting an early November return. Jamie, go. San Francisco, Seattle.
Yeah, I was reading the NFL.com story on the 49ers this morning that Kyle Shanahan, said he was a little concerned about putting Mason back in, that he thought it might just be an adrenaline thing that was allowing him to not feel as in pain as he was. So that's clearly something to monitor. Hopefully Mason will be okay. Otherwise, everybody's running to. I think they're going to run to the waiver wire anyway to pick up Guerrero. But the concern was, at least watching that, if he didn't break off that run at the end, would it be Patrick Taylor? Because they were leaning on Taylor a lot in the fourth quarter. It was nice that they went to Guerrero in the moment that they needed to kill the clock, and he came through. So I just hope that people aren't going to chase the one big run thinking that it's definitely Guerrero, because we could see a split backfield here with Deebo Samuel mixing in also against the Chiefs run defense that's obviously very good. So just something to keep an eye on there. But in any event, like you said it, it's the 49ers. You kind of know what you're getting. 2 of the guys are going to do well. One guy's going to be left out. It was unfortunately Ayuk. And then for Seattle, it was a rough start for Geno. He closed much better with garbage time production, if you want to call it garbage time. But Metcalf is a good buy low candidate right now. I think JSN's still a good buy low candidate too. And they're somewhat similar to San Francisco. You're going to get 2 guys probably doing well on a weekly basis and one guy disappointing.
I think, I would love to see a little bit more yardage out of JSN. He had 53 yards. Is that like the second most of his season? He's had one really good yardage game, 100-yard game at New England, but he's almost like a little bit better version of Wan'Dale Robinson. It's just slot guy, not doing much.
There was one throw that Geno made that I thought would have been a nice play for both of them. It was he had him in the honey hole, between the corner and safety on the left side. And JSN he felt the guy coming. He alligator armed it a little bit. I don't blame him at all, but he alligator armed it a little bit. And if Geno hits that pass, it could have been a similar play to what happened with Deebo, where the safety misses him and he goes.
Yeah, I saw at least 2 end zone targets. Dave, what are your thoughts on this game?
I thought Brandon Ayuk's game, obviously the stats were terrible, but the thing I noticed was that Witherspoon was on him a decent amount, especially in the second half, and he covered him pretty well. It makes me a little bit nervous to think about other wide receivers moving forward where Witherspoon could be on him, on them rather. But I watched his snaps on long second downs and third downs. About a third of the time there was a safety over the top. There were a couple of times where he was open, including in the end zone in the late first quarter. Purdy just didn't look his way. So it's pretty frustrating. On top of that, only 4 targets. I would say that you have another buy low opportunity on Ayuk, but I think he's going to be just kind of a boom or bust mega receiver, I guess is the best way to put it, because we're probably still going to start him even against Kansas City, and especially against Kansas City. That would make sense given the matchup and given the question mark at running back for the 49ers. DK Metcalf got robbed. I still don't necessarily understand the illegal shift penalty that was called.
He didn't stop. He just kept.
He stopped for like a beat, right?
It's so stupid.
I agree with you. Like, just don't call that illegal shift. That's what I meant to say was shift. But here's the thing. Like, as long as Geno Smith is going to throw the ball 40 plus times and Ken Walker's going to run a bunch of routes, you're going to feel great starting him no matter what.
Ken Walker, by the way, I said coming into the game, 2 straight games with 30 or more routes run. That was only the second and third time of his career. Well, you could make it 3 straight games. He hit that mark again, 30 on the nose, 30 routes.
It was one of the easiest props to play yesterday was Walker over, I think it was 2.5. I mean, it's either 2.5 or 3.5 catches. You're getting plus money on it. He's just it's like a staple now in their game where he's just catching these passes.
It's huge. Makes him, I know he didn't have a great rushing average, but it makes him, feel like a first round caliber kind of player.
Yes.
Let me ask you one more thing here.
Go ahead.
Sell high on Deebo Samuel, you think? Because this is 3 straight games with 5 or fewer targets. And again, downfield passing game, that's not really his thing. I'm wondering if this offense suits him at this point. And obviously he got, I don't want to say lucky because he makes those plays, but a little lucky with the 70-ish yard touchdown.
Oh, he definitely got lucky. I mean, safety took a bad angle on it. I do think as long as McCaffrey is out, you should feel pretty good about Deebo because he's going to get those touches, and especially now. Like his carries, what did he have last night? 5?
Yeah, I think.
He had 4 carries, 15 yards.
Those are going to start to come through a little bit more.
All right.
They have to use him more there. They're going to trust Garendo, who was miserable until that long run late, and Patrick Taylor. Taylor played more snaps than Garendo, by the way, in the second half.
All right, Tyler Lockett is 56% rostered. That's someone we can talk about on the waiver wire at Atlanta next week. And that is Thursday Night Football. San Francisco 36, Seattle 24. All right, Sunday is a fun day for us, fun day for everybody. Get those lineups set. You need that last-minute advice. Well, we've got a game in London, so we are on at 9 a.m. on CBS Sports HQ and youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. We answer your questions. That's pretty much all we do is we give you the news updates, and there will be a lot of them this week. And we answer your questions if you go to youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Subscribe to the channel. Oh, hit the like button, by the way, and ask us questions. So that's 9 to 10 a.m. on YouTube and on CBS Sports HQ. Then noon to 1 p.m. we'll be there just on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. But on HQ, right from that 9 o'clock hour, it goes right into Jamie joining at 10 o'clock, and they continue to preview the games until kickoff.
Rick Spielman's back this week.
Oh, excellent.
Pretzels for everybody.
All right. I got a segment here called Running Back Blues because we've got a lot of injuries in backfields. Unfortunately, we're doing our mailbag a little bit earlier today, 11 a.m. Eastern, so we won't have injury updates for most of these situations. But I'm just going to go we'll go one by one here. I'll give you a backfield that has an injury to keep an eye on. I hope I didn't forget any because I have like 10. And you tell me, who you think the starter is going to be. And then on a scale of 1 to 10 on the start-o-meter, how excited you are to start said running back. Jamie, Indianapolis at Tennessee.
I'm expecting it to be Trey Sermon at this point, and he is a 5 on the startometer.
All right, hopefully he can catch some passes like he did last week, but it's looking like it's going to be Anthony Richardson, who practiced in full instead of Flacco. New England, Dave, I'll give you that game because Ramondre's injured. He hasn't practiced yet. Mixon was limited. So New England and Houston, let's start with both teams are struggling against the run, especially the Patriots. Go ahead.
So I'm giving the name, and then what after that?
Startometer 1 to 10.
Okay, great. So Mixon is going to be like an 8 on the startometer. If he gets in multiple practices this week, I think that's a really good situation for him. Fresh legs, good matchup, etc. I think it crushes Agumbawale. For the Patriots, if it's Antonio Gibson, don't love it. I'd say a 5 on the startometer.
What if it's Ramondre? What if he plays?
Like 7.1538.
Okay. And what if it's not? What if Mixon's out? Nobody.
Agumbawale is my favorite, but he'd be like a 6.
Okay, Jamie, let's go to the Bengals Giants.
Don't forget Pierce is going to play too.
Right. That's why it's just a mess.
Yep.
Go to the Bengals Giants game so the Bengals are really interesting. Zach Moss returned to limited practice, and Chase Brown was downgraded to limited practice. And then Devin Singletary seems to be trending in the right direction. So give me the running backs that in this game.
At this point, I'm going to expect both Bengals running backs to play. So I still like Brown the best. I'll say he is a now 7. He would have been a 9 if Moss was out. And Moss is a 6.5. So could still be a flex play based on what his role has been in the passing game. I think that continues. For the Giants, I agree with you. It sounds like Singletary's trending in the right direction. He also is now a 7. I think he's got the opportunity to be a number 2 running back. Good matchup, as we know, against the Bengals. And Tracy is now pi 3.14.
I'm pretty nervous about starting Singletary. Man, I just wonder if it's a full-blown split, if it's like a Buccaneers Jaguars kind of situation, and which isn't good for anyone.
So I don't know where Dave or Heath have Singletary ranked. For me, he is like 21, 22. So behind like what we were talking about yesterday, the Dobbins, Williams, Najee group, and right now I have him ahead of Stevenson, because I'm nervous about him playing at less than 100%. But I would start him over Sermon. I would start him over Rico Dowdle. I would start him over trying to think like any other. I start him over Rashad White, for example.
Who's the first one you said? You start him over who?
I start him over
Sermon. Oh,
Rico Dowdle.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said Sherman.
No, Stevenson.
He said Sermon.
Right.
Shermanator.
Nutty Professor. All right, I got you. Question here: Singletary or Dell?
Singletary for me.
I think he's safer.
All right, Tampa Bay running backs. As Rashad White, Dave is banged up. They're at New Orleans.
Oh, I'd be very happy if Bucky Irving ended up being the lead back there, and would start him with the confidence of a 7 on the startometer. If Rashad White's okay, White's going to be the one that I'll lean toward, but he's going to be in that 6 range. Bucky will move to a 5, maybe like a 4.5 on the startometer if they both play.
Okay, but it's startometer. Buffalo at the Jets, Jamie. James Cook has not practiced yet. They have the Monday night game, so maybe it's not too alarming, but have you been moved? You don't have to give me the startometer or anything, but have you been moved to pick up Ray Davis or Ty Johnson?
Not yet. The fact that it, for whatever reason, I don't quite understand. I got to go back and look at this. They gave an injury report on Wednesday when they don't have to. They have at least.
I was confused about that too.
Yeah. So the Thursday one is the one that you should be concerned about, because I don't think he's technically missed practice 2 straight days or 2 straight practices that matter from the injury report standpoint. If he misses on Friday, okay, now you should be concerned. Certainly if he's not practicing on Saturday, then he's most likely going to be out. But at this point, no. I think he'll be one of those guys that you run to the waiver wire to get. I would lean toward Davis over Johnson just because I think there's more upside there. But it'd be a mess. I mean, can you imagine Buffalo without Khalil Shakir, without James Cook? Like, Jets get the new coach bump. Like it's it would be ugly.
All right, let's go to the next one here. The Falcons running backs. Anybody worried about Bijan at this point?
I mean, because of the injury?
Yeah.
No. Because of like what's been happening, kind of.
We'll come back to that. I want to give you a time to talk about that. Okay. But let's just finish this segment here. Cleveland running backs at Philadelphia. Dave, what do we know right now? Where are we with the Browns?
What do we know?
Not much.
I mean, Nick Chubb has been limited. It would be wonderful if he comes back and plays. If he does, the confidence level would be at like a 6 for him, because it's his first game, because I don't think the Browns will run him into the ground in the first game. And then Ford would be a 0. Foreman would be a 0. If there is no Chubb, I'm not real excited about the Browns running backs. Ford would be a 4. Foreman would be a 2, which is like you're desperate. for a running back who might score 6 points.
And finally, Jamie, Brian Robinson has not been practicing. So let's talk about the Washington running backs at Baltimore.
Yeah, obviously something to keep an eye on today. We had the same situation last week where he didn't return to practice until Friday. So if Robinson plays, he is a 6 on the start start thingy. If he's out, and Eckler in that situation would be a flex, so he would be 4. If he is out, Eckler would be a 6, and Jeremy McNichols would be a 5. So Eckler would be a borderline RB2, and McNichols would be a flex.
You wouldn't have Eckler as an RB2 in full PPR?
I don't know if he's going to get the full rushing numbers that Brian Robinson would get. I wonder if just McNichols slides into that role, and Eckler would get more just chances to touch the ball. But yes, he would be. Where I said Singletary would go, Stevenson go, right around 20.
So are you saying that you would rather start Singletary than Brian Robinson if they both play?
Right now I have Singletary ranked ahead of Robinson, yes, because I'm concerned about the knee injury.
All right. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, people, it is time. Use that bonus code FANTASY. You're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. And here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app, sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. Let's take a break. News and notes. One question for each game after this, and also a little beat the waiver wire and our favorite stacks of the week. And we'll be right back on FFT.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount Plus. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Okay, here are your news and notes. The Jets are changing play callers. Todd Downing is taking over. Dave, is anything significant here, you think?
You mean Aaron Rodgers is staying on as play caller?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if there's a positive impact here. It's not like Todd Downing set the world on fire when he was a play caller before in Tennessee and some other places.
Anthony Richardson practiced in full. Russell Wilson practiced in full, but I think still Justin Fields expected to start. Wilson's 9% rostered. And
Dave, you're all in on Fields though, right?
I moved him down.
Okay. James Cook so the running backs, we kind of covered it. James Cook missed practice. Zamir White still missing practice. Travis Etienne was limited. Rashad White's got this foot injury.
You didn't bring up the Jags running backs.
Who?
You didn't bring up the Jags running backs.
I did just now. I mean, Etienne's going to play. He was limited. I'm not, right? We're not really.
But will he be limited?
I think so.
I think he might.
I would agree or disagree. Bigsby will have more carries than Etienne.
Agree.
I agree, but I think Etienne will have more touches.
Okay, let's see. Jonathan Taylor still missing practice. Trey Sermon was able to practice, though. So it looks like, as Jamie said, looks like he'll start. Audric Estime is trending toward playing this week. So he's currently on IR. You could take a look at him and see what happens, but Audric Estime going to play. Looks like he's going to play this week against the Chargers. That's Broncos rookie running back. Let's see. Jalen Warren still questionable. Ramondre, we know he's missing practice with a calf issue. Zach Moss limited. Chase Brown limited. I'm repeating a lot of stuff here. So Gus Edwards missed practice again. And I've said we go back to the running back segment. Wide receivers. So according to The Athletic, the 4 teams that are interested in acquiring Devontae Adams are the Jets, the Saints, the Bills, please, and the Steelers.
No.
Josh Downs still missing practice with a toe injury. Malik Neighbors improving, but still in the concussion protocol. I think at this point, right now on Friday morning, we got to say probably no on Neighbors, right?
Yep, leaning that way.
Crazy. Hope he gets better soon. Arizona wide receiver Zay Jones is back from suspension. Does this matter at all for people who might be starting Michael Wilson in a pinch?
Not yet.
Okay. Ricky Pearsall expected to practice this upcoming week. Khalil Shakir missing practice again. Christian Watson limited. Are you guys ranking Christian Watson yet?
Not yet.
No, but I'm double checking my waiver wire to make sure that he's on my bench if he's out there.
Josh Reynolds missed practice for the Broncos. Jacoby Myers missing. He missed practice again? I think he did. I think this is one to watch, right? Jacoby Myers against Pittsburgh.
It's obviously one to watch. Sure. I mean, this is a guy that is intriguing to a lot of people. And as we talked about yesterday, Heath has him ranked 13th. So,
Right.
Mhm.
Taysom Hill missing practice again. Luke Musgrave could go on IR, by the way. Looks like he's going to end up on IR. He's going to be out for a while. Pat Fryermuth was limited. Mike Gesicki upgraded to limited. Evan Ingram limited. David Njoku limited. I might get those guys back this week. Ingram and Njoku. Ingram looking like he will be back.
Njoku too.
Okay, well, that's who would you rather have, Ingram or Njoku?
Ingram.
Ingram.
And a big injury, Kayvon Thibodeau. Thibodeau. I always forget. Week to week, that's a big loss for the Giants. For the Steelers, edge rusher Alex Highsmith was limited, so that'd be great if he could come back. Bengals could be getting Sheldon Rankins back. He's missed 3 straight games, defensive tackle for them. Micah Parsons doesn't seem like he's going to play. And those 2 starting defensive backs for the Browns, Grant Delpit and Denzel Ward, they both missed practice again. Looks like the Bucs will get Kalijah Cansey back. This will be his first game of the season at New Orleans if he does in fact play. Chargers edge rusher Joey Bosa missed practice again. Time for one question.
I always like how you get excited about the injury guys for defensive players coming back. We don't want them back. Let them get healthy, get rest. Yeah.
Fair enough. One question.
That's great for the Steelers.
No.
Kalijah Cansey is back, everybody. Alvin Kamara's situation just went from bad to worse.
IDP, right? Jacksonville's at Chicago. Jacksonville's at Chicago. Start, sit, or drop Caleb Williams.
Now you're stealing my game.
No, I'm just making fun of myself. Sorry. Starter said Caleb Williams.
I like him as a bye week replacement quarterback. I do like a lot of quarterbacks this week, but I don't have him in my top 12.
Agree.
Daniel Jones or Caleb Williams?
Jones.
I have Jones, and I've got Williams over Justin Fields.
Arizona's at Green Bay. Any sleeper? Like, it's easy to say start most of the guys in this game, Arizona at Green Bay, but any sleepers in this game?
I think Witt and Dobbs qualify, just in terms of who's going to be that second receiver or third option, behind Kraft. So
it would be so 2024 fantasy football for Dontavian Wicks to have a big game after everybody started him last week and he had a dud.
Oh, I could see it. They left a lot of production on the field. He had 1 drop, 2 plays. Jordan Love missed him, I think, for a combined 2 catches, 45 yards. One of them was definitely on Love. One of them, I'm not sure if it was the route. But this is kind of what happens when you go downfield all the time. Is you're boomer bust. But he is super fast and he still burns guys. So,
he got 7 targets. I mean, it's not like he wasn't involved.
Led the team in targets.
Yeah. I'm starting him in those. I mentioned this from time to time. These analyst leagues that I'm in, 14 teams, triple flex. So again, if you have a pulse, you're probably going to be a starter. But happy to start him in that format, and I would view him as a bye week receiver. That's
Dontavian Wicks. Is he better than Romeo Doubs?
I would start him over Doubs.
I have Dobbs ranked higher just because I think this is a little bit of a squeaky wheel game for him.
Maybe, yeah. Tampa Bay at New Orleans. Start or sit Mike Evans?
Start, but start with a little trepidation. Not a must, not a top 10 guy, but a top 24 receiver.
I'm 23rd.
Okay, looking forward to talking about that one. Terrible history against New Orleans. That's who he plays for, Tampa Bay.
You were 3 weeks ahead of this game. You were so excited.
I know. Detroit at Dallas. Jameson Williams or Jalen Tolbert? Jameson Williams has 5 targets in his last 2 games or something like that?
He definitely has seen his targets drop. I would still start Williams over Tolbert, but they're very close.
I'm taking Tolbert over Jameson, and I love Jameson, but I think that Tolbert's the one that's going to see more targets in the game, certainly has the easier matchup in the game. And I think he's looked great for several weeks now. We've been talking him up. Both of them are number 3 receivers.
All right. Atlanta at Carolina. Any interest in Xavier Legette, who got injured last week, but he's good to go?
It's a good stash candidate. I don't think you want to start him this week, but the last time we saw him play a full game, he had 10 targets, 6 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. So hopefully that's the role that he's going to play, or at least be that involved. But offensive line concerns for the Panthers right now. Andy Dalton has sort of turned into Andy Dalton again. And who knows if he is 100% healthy. I mean, not in the practice report, at least injury report as far as I saw. So hopefully that's good to go.
He's in that same bucket as Dontavian Wicks for me.
Cincinnati's at the Giants. Bonanza?
I mean, they don't need neighbors, so sure.
I'm nervous about the Giants. I mean, But like, would you start Darius Slayton over Jamison Williams and Jalen Tolbert if Neighbors is out?
I would, yes.
I think I probably would too.
Okay.
So like
I
I
don't
just
have my
dropped
way right now, but
I dropped Wicks in one league for Slayton just because of Neighbors still being out. Like I think Slayton's got a higher ceiling.
oh yeah,
You've seen right now. I mean, the way Daniel Jones is leaning on two guys, and
Yes.
it doesn't really matter who the two guys are. Like we thought, okay, it's just Neighbors, right? So Slayton comes in and it's both.
And what I loved about the way they use Slayton is that he is pretty much just a deep threat when Neighbors is on the field. But his average route depth was something like 7 yards last week. His ADOT was very reasonable. He ran a lot of slants. He played like a true number one receiver and played very well. Houston at New England. Tank Dell or more like Tank Sell?
I would lean Tank Sell.
Okay.
I think he's a decent option in 3 receiver leagues.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I'm if anyone's getting Christian Gonzalez, it's him. Because Diggs is going to be in the slot more. So
Sure.
we'll see.
And if Mixon's back, they could run a lot.
Maybe I should say
step up against May.
Maybe Diggs gets Gonzalez when he's outside, which will be about half the time. All right, Dave, I'm sorry to do this to you. I know you wrote a lot, or you have a lot of thoughts on Bijan Robinson. Can you give me your thoughts in 30 seconds?
I think he should be considered a sell high candidate, especially if he has a big game against Carolina. The scheme that they're running, and you might have read about this or heard about it. I think they talked about it on Beyond the Box Score. It's this outside zone running. He's good at it, but so is Algier. And I don't think they're going to get away from it. And I think they're embracing having 2 running backs. So anytime that there's going to be a game where they can run the ball a lot, and you're going to see Bijan Robinson get 20 carries and do well with them against Carolina, he should do that. Then by all means, it's an opportunity to sell very high on him. I wouldn't trade him into peanuts, but I also think on top of him sharing, and I don't think the split is going away, I think the Falcons are going to embrace Kirk Cousins. I think they're going to continue to throw the ball a lot, and they're throwing to both of these running backs out of the backfield.
So I agree with most of that. The only thing I would say is that the offensive line has been really beat up, and hopefully when they get healthy, that's going to help everybody across the board. But I think the last thing you said is extremely relevant. As Kirk Cousins gets healthier and they're allowed to do a few more things with this offense that I think they were a little hamstrung with in terms of moving the pocket a little bit, getting him on some moving him around just in general, that's going to allow things to open up for everybody. And you saw a little bit of that last week. I saw a lot of that last week, with how, all 3 receiving options were operating. And that's just going to open up things in the run game too. So I think Dave said it best. You're not giving Bijan Robinson away, but if you're concerned about this, then sure, try and trade him. But I think the best of Bijan's yet to come.
All right.
I hope the best of Bijan.
Check out Dave's articles with some Jacob Gibbs stats in there. His article on Bijan Robinson. It's very informative. And the run scheme is something we don't talk about too much, but it may not be working in his favor. And they are running so much.
Yeah, Robert Turbin talked about this a little bit on Wednesday too. Like, just the way that they're using him is not the best for him. Like
Correct.
They're not allowing him to just be a playmaker. According to Robert, he said that's something that needs to, improve also. So, look, you have a first-time offense coordinator that, things will continue to evolve as they get healthier, which is hard to say because the NFL, not everybody gets healthier. Most teams get more banged up, but he's been banged up. Line's been banged up. Cousins not 100%. If those things all come together, we could see a big season still for Bijan.
All right. Now it's time for the Hellman's Stack segment where we discuss the quarterback and receiver duos to keep an eye on this upcoming weekend. Brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo Game Face be as vicious as your buffalo chicken dip is delicious. Dave Richard, give me 2 quarterback wide receiver stacks you like this week.
I like Jordan Love with Jaden Reed. I think that that's a good opportunity for them to connect a little bit more against Arizona. I am still not impressed with this Cardinals defense. I think we will see Reed lead the Packers in targets and have another big game against the Arizona Cardinals. And A.J. Brown is back for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know the matchup against Cleveland, you think about that Browns defense. Yeah, they've got a great pass rush and their cornerbacks are really good. I don't think it's going to matter. I think we're going to see Jalen Hurts, whose offensive line, by the way, is back at full strength. That's nice. Hurts to A.J. Brown will be a thing. Everybody's starting these guys, but you should expect big games from both of those stacks.
What about Hurts to Devontae Smith?
I think that Smith takes a hit with A.J. Brown back, but no one will take a hit bigger than Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
Goddard's the one that really makes me nervous. So if we were to use the startometer, AJ Brown's a 10, Devontae Smith is like a 8, and Dallas Goedert for me is like a 5, and Jalen Hurts is a 12.
All right, this has been the Hellman Stack segment brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Just like these QB and wide receiver duos, tailgate snacking and Hellman's Mayonnaise make the perfect combo, bringing out the rich and creamy taste to all your game day dishes. So give it a try, and may your game day be delicious with Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Shop at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store and add some extra deliciousness to your game day dishes this football season. I'm going to skip Beat the Waiver Wire because we've got a whole FFT Express episode dedicated to that. Let's go to Jacksonville at Chicago. Updated stat of the game. The Bears have allowed at least 82 yards and a touchdown to 4 running backs in 5 games. Pollard, Taylor, Kyron Williams, Chuba Hubbard. None of those guys are really splitting, not even Pollard, the way that the Jaguars might be. But this Chicago pass defense, Jamie, has been unbelievable. Their run defense has been very suspect here. So why don't you just break down the Jaguars and how you see them in terms of starts and sits?
It's hard to sit Brian Thomas Jr. at this point. 18 targets his last 2 games. So tough matchup. You just got to sort of lower expectations a little bit. But I'm still starting him with the hope that he doesn't get, shut down like Deontay Johnson did last week, for example. But again, he's just been so good. And I hope he's that good that he can overcome some of these tougher situations. Christian Kirk is easier to sit because of Evan Ingram's return. So Kirk more of a starter in 3 receiver leagues at best, better in PPR than non-PPR. Last week, the targets weren't there for him, but he still made a big play. So that's something that will hopefully help him. But Ingram coming back, we saw at least what game 1 looked like for him, for Kirk at least. So I'm a little bit nervous against the secondary on top of it. Ingram, not a must-start tight end based on the matchup, based on a little bit shake off the rust type of game. So borderline starter. I still like Tucker Kraft, obviously. In PPR, I would start Conklin over him, and I would consider Schultz over him also. For the running backs, it's still ETN over Bigsby, but Bigsby can be at least a flex, if not a low-end starter in 2 running backs. In a league where you only start 2 running backs. I agree with you, Adam. I think we're going to see Bigsby get more carries, and hopefully that's where he wins because he's won the last 2 weeks, 7 for 90 against Houston, over 100 yards rushing against the Colts. It's a good matchup, and I think this is where Jacksonville will have to sort of go, is lean on their ground game, take some pressure off of Trevor Lawrence, and try and slow the game down a little bit, win it that way.
DJ Moore or Brian Thomas?
Moore.
DJ Moore.
Okay. Trey Sermon, if Taylor's out, or Bigsby?
I have both Jaguars running backs over Sermon.
Agreed.
Both. Okay. I'm actually starting both in a league. Nice.
Who else do you have?
Well, I have Bucky Irving, I believe. So,
Okay.
But I also have like Kareem Hunt and,
Right. So you're going to be in for a pickle of a decision if Rashad White is ruled out.
Oh no, I won't. I mean, Irving will be. It will be Irving, and then the decision in a half PPR league is which Jack running back, right? Yeah.
But I would agree with Jamie. I think ETN still deserves to be trusted. Still in PPR leagues, I do buy into that. He's their like when you hear Doug Peterson say, "Oh, he's our lead back," that just means he's going to start for them. But if he doesn't get moving, or if his shoulder bothers him, this team will have no hesitation going back to Tank Bigsby and giving Bigsby opportunities to break those big runs that he's been getting. So it's definitely a 1A, 1B type of situation, but ETN is still the 1A.
Well, guys, glad I brought up that league because I just went and checked my lineup to see who I'm starting Bigsby and ETN over, and I am losing 50-0. I face Purdy and Kittle, so I guess it doesn't really matter anymore who I'm starting. Wonderful. Okay, Najee Harris or Jaguars running backs?
Najee right now. If Warren plays, it's different.
Yeah, agreed. And doesn't it feel gross to keep going back to Najee week after week?
He's had so many good matchups, and the last 2 weeks without Warren and Patterson. You forgot that one, by the way, in your running back blues.
No, I didn't. Oh, in the blue, I didn't. Yeah, you're right. Because it hasn't really changed, but fair enough. Okay, sorry. So Christian Kirk. We talked about Jamison Williams and Jalen Tolbert. How about Kirk?
Both over Kirk.
Yeah, both over Kirk.
Okay. So only one wide receiver so far has scored more than 12.2 PPR fantasy points against the Bears. And that was
Nico Collins.
The great Nico Collins. And that was not Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, Deontay Johnson. They've been awful, these guys, but not exactly the toughest competition.
How many targets did Nico have in that game? It was a bunch, right?
He had
every game.
10 targets, 8 catches, 135 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. All right, so as we go on through the show, we'll do some more Brian Thomas comparisons. But here's some questions. I'm just going to read some questions from the chat. Bigsby or Dowdle?
Bigsby for me.
I have Dowdle a spot ahead of Bigsby.
Christian Kirk or Tajay Spears?
That's an interesting one. I might go Spears.
I'm going Kirk.
Christian, okay.
They both might have the same amount of catches.
Dobbins or Bigsby?
Dobbins.
JK.
Okay. And Evan Ingram, Dallas Goedert with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown back, or Evan Ingram?
Got it.
I'm taking Ingram.
Okay. Pat Freiermuth or Ingram?
Freiermuth.
Ingram, Freiermuth, Goddard.
Caleb Williams. I would start him over Daniel Jones.
Why?
Well, because Neighbors isn't playing, and we have to temper our expectations. The Jaguars give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks, 32 to Flacco last week, 26 to Stroud, 38 to Allen. Even Deshaun Watson had 15 fantasy points. You know, look, the thing with Caleb Williams is that he was so bad throwing the ball downfield for the first 4 games. He was QB 28 per game, first 4 games in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, and one of the worst downfield passers, not even that far downfield, but one of the worst passers in football, just 10 or more air yards. He was great in that last week. In a terrific matchup against Carolina. But if he can get that fixed, then he's going to be really good, I think. So, if you don't start him against Jacksonville, then I guess you just,
Look, it's not the biggest stretch to say starting him over Daniel Jones when Jones doesn't have his best receiver. So it's not like, I hope people are not that desperate at quarterback that those are your only 2 options, Caleb Williams or Daniel Jones.
No, but they're ranked pretty high. They're fairly high.
They're both top 15 quarterbacks. I think they both have the opportunity to play well. And look, they're both, you can't really use them. I was going to say both good DFS plays, but you can't use the Jacksonville game as on the slate. But they're both going to have an opportunity here to help fantasy managers. The thing that I would go back to, though, is it's not like Jones has a horrific matchup. And based on what his season has shown us, certainly last week too, without Malik Neighbors, was his best game of the season. So I would just lean on Jones slightly ahead of Williams, because it's not like if you're just looking at the team aspect of it, the Bears can run on Jacksonville too.
Let's get to that, because Jacksonville's run defense actually has been pretty solid. But do you like DeAndre Swift this week coming off 2 great?
Yeah, for sure. Back-to-back weeks with 23 carries or 23 total touches, back-to-back weeks with 120 plus yards, scored a touchdown in each game. The one thing that could be frustrating is he goes back to like what happened to him last year, where the yardage is good and he's losing touchdowns because Roschon's getting those goal line opportunities, similar to Jalen Hurts last year for Philadelphia. So just based on the way that he's operated the last 2 weeks, and I think part of the reason why Caleb Williams has played better is the offensive line's played better too. So you're looking at a team that's starting to click, and this is a good opportunity here for Swift to keep it going.
Okay. Jaguars good against the run, but they give up the 2nd most receiving yards per game to running backs, and overall the 4th most fantasy points to running backs. So Swift is the best running back in this game, I assume. Just say
he is the best running back in this game. And what's been the new addition to his role over the last 2 weeks?
A little more pass catching.
More pass catching.
Only 2 catches last week. We had 7 the week before. Chicago wide receivers, DJ Moore is the only must start here. Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, or Christian Kirk? Who's the best one in that group?
I have Kirk highest of the 3.
Kirk.
And any interest in Cole Kmet?
Not really. He's just been pedestrian when everybody's been healthy.
I'll start a Ravens tight end.
And do you like the Bears DST?
Not Charlie Kohler.
You like the Bears DST?
Yes.
Do.
Okay, yeah, they're a start. All right, we'll take a break. We got Arizona at Green Bay and 5 other games when we come back on Fantasy Football Today.
It's a team almost too good to be true.
You guys ain't ready for us.
Kick your game day off right as the Tops team tackles all the biggest headlines around the league.
Who's got 2 thumbs and loves this next segment?
Sunday mornings on CBS Sports Network.
The Cardinals are at the Packers. Which quarterback do you like better in this game?
Love.
Like them both, though, right?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Which running back do you like better in this game?
Connor.
I agree.
Which wide receiver do you like better in this game? Reed or Harrison?
Jaden Reed.
Reed, okay. Is Harrison someone that you could see
Do
getting?
the tight ends. Do the tight ends.
Which tight end do you like better in this game?
McBride. But close.
They're back to back. They're both top 5.
McBride feels so close to having a big game. I mean, he nearly had a touchdown. He barely almost caught it. And then they set up like a screen to him in the red zone that was incomplete because there was pressure in Kyler's face. But gets a lot of targets. Yeah, target per route run rate. I think I said he's number 1 amongst tight ends. But you know,
Should be a fun game.
it should be, right? I mean, look, just start a lot of guys in this game. I don't know if there are a lot of tough calls here, but if you have any questions, go for it. But let's say
It's the secondary receivers. Really, that's it. I mean, nobody's starting Michael Wilson at this point, even though he was better than Marvin Harrison last week. But I mean, like, even if Jair Alexander plays, like, you're not sitting Marvin Harrison.
Harrison, man, I looked into it a little bit, and his average route depth, his ADOT, it's just you don't find a lot of receivers who are good with an average route depth of 11.7 yards. Well, first of all, there's hardly ever any receivers that have a route depth this deep and run a lot of routes and get a lot of targets. There's like 1 or 2 a year. So again, I mean, you got to think about it. He's got one game with more than 64 yards. We expect more than that from Marvin Harrison. So
I wonder if we redid rookie only drafts right now. He's definitely not going ahead of Neighbors.
No.
Nope.
And does he go ahead of Brian Thomas?
I would guess so.
I would too. Yeah.
Would you take him ahead of Brian Thomas?
I probably still would, but it's a fun conversation. The one who clearly is struggling right now is Odunze, the high end guys. Like Thomas goes ahead of Odunze for sure.
So you guys have Marvin Harrison in your top 12. Heath has him lower, though. I think last I checked, he had him 27th in let me double check that. Harrison. Yeah, 27th Marvin Harrison for Heath. So you guys have faith in him, and we'll just leave it at that. So then, Jamie, let's talk about the secondary wide receivers and who you like in this game, because Michael Wilson is interesting. Michael Wilson's got 8, 11, 6, and 7 targets in his last 4 games. So that's 6 to 9 targets in 3 straight games. And there have been 5 wide receivers with 6 to 9 targets against the Packers. And 4 of them came through with big games. Devontae Smith, Alec Pierce, DeAndre Hopkins, and Justin Jefferson.
Adam, I don't think those stats are correct on Wilson. Harrison.
I'm looking at Harrison. Oh, no. Okay. But this first thing I said was wrong. But Wilson does have 6 to 9 targets in 3 straight games.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But I was going through Harrison's game.
And 2 of those games were productive. The one game I think where we bought into him, which was the game before, the Washington game, where it was, hey, great matchup. Kyler was bad and he was bad. So look, desperation, number 3 receiver in a deep league, 4th receiver as a flex option in PPR. He certainly fits the bill. You asked the question earlier. We'll see if Zay Jones factors in. My guess would be no right now, but maybe down the road that becomes something to keep an eye on, which could impact Marvin Harrison too. But I think just looking at it right now, in terms of how this game should go, it should be, Harrison hopefully finding the end zone, because that's kind of been what's saving him. A lot of McBride. The Packers secondary receivers are more, I think, interesting than Michael Wilson, just because of what Wicks did 2 weeks ago. Is Watson going to play? Dobbs is now back after the suspension. So I know we talked about this before, but I'm not anticipating Watson to play right now. I would lean slightly Dobbs over Wicks. Both are borderline number 3 receivers. Not a lot of I don't have them ranked very high. I think if they're on your team, you can consider them number 3 receivers. But for Dobbs, it just feels like there's, okay, hey, you want more targets? We worked this out. Here's, still going to be your 6 to 7 targets. And we know last year he was a big end zone threat for them. So wouldn't be surprising if he scores and Wicks just has a decent yardage game. But both number 3 receivers.
Worth pointing out for Dobbs, week 1, 7 targets, week 4, 8 targets. Those are the 2 games so far that Jordan Love has played in, that Dobbs has also played in. So I think it's fair. potentially out target Wicks.
Who are the 4 tight ends that you're starting over Tucker Kraft?
Kittle was one.
Mm-hmm.
Bowers, Ferguson, McBride.
Yep.
Okay. Let's. All right. So that's the end of this game here. If you have any questions, fire away in the chat. But I do. Here's one: Wicks or Josh Downs, who may not play. So Wicks or J.K. Dobbins in standard scoring.
Dobbins over both, no matter who plays. And I would go Downs over Wicks if Downs plays.
Wicks or Tolbert.
Tolbert.
Tolbert, yeah.
Wicks or Dell.
Dell for me.
Tank.
Okay, I got to take a. I got to go back to the Chicago game because I just saw an injury report and 2 starters that played every single snap for the Bears in their secondary are going to be out this week. Tyreek Stevenson, their cornerback, is doubtful.
He's a starting corner.
And Jaquan Brisker, their safety, is out with a concussion. So
I don't even know if Brisker made the trip.
Well, it doesn't matter. He's out. So I didn't talk about that, and I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I just saw the injury update here. Does that change anything? 2 of their starting defensive backs are out for Chicago.
I mean, obviously helps.
Yeah.
I want to know if it might be Jalen Jones that replaces Stevenson at corner. And then Jonathan Owens might replace Brisker. I'm not sure if it'll be him or another guy. Yeah, of course it helps.
Okay. Now, Jalen Johnson, if you're wondering, he does not travel. He is unlikely to shadow Brian Thomas or anything like that.
Well, I mean, this is the first time, right? Stevenson, this is the first game that Stevenson's going to miss.
That's
so
true.
we can't say for sure that it's going to be that way. It's just what it has been that way. It has been that way.
Well, that brings us to Marshawn Lattimore, doesn't it? All right. Tampa Bay is at New Orleans. Stat of the game: in 12 games against the Saints with Marshawn Lattimore playing, Mike Evans has scored more than 12.8 PPR fantasy points once. He scored single-digit fantasy points in PPR in 7 of 12 games. He has more than 64 yards only twice.
Well, he's been ejected in 2 of those, right?
Ejected at least once. I know last time he left with a hamstring injury with 70 yards or something like that in the first half. Whatever it was. No, not that many. I think it was 3 for 40 on 3 targets in the first half.
It's 13 or fewer PPR points in each of the past 9 games Evans has played against the Saints when Lattimore's also played.
Yeah, it hasn't been that good against them when Lattimore hasn't played. And then I went back and I watched because Lattimore this year and last year, he has played right cornerback almost every single snap, except when he played Mike Evans last year. He did travel with Evans on like 3 of 4 snaps on the other side of the field. But Evans usually lines up on that side anyway. So it is interesting. What do you guys think? I think, Dave, you said you have him 23rd or 24th?
Yeah, I'm nervous about the track record and what the Saints have done to take Mike Evans away. It seems to be a tried and true method that's worked, whether it's been Baker Mayfield at quarterback or Tom Brady at quarterback or even Jameis Winston. It goes back that far. And the quarterbacks have done pretty well against New Orleans. It's maybe 50-50 as for having a big game versus just kind of a mad game or worse. But I think this is the week where you want to talk about stacks. I think Mayfield and Godwin is a smart stack to play and kind of steer yourself away from Evans. You're going to start Evans, but at least lower expectations.
This Saints defense has been good across the board.
It's true.
Yeah, they've allowed 1 touchdown pass to 6 interceptions. Are you serious? So what about Baker Mayfield, Jamie? What about Chris Godwin?
Yeah, Mayfield is just above Daniel Jones and Caleb Williams for me. So I have him 12th. I'm nervous. We saw the Denver game, how that went for him when he faced a tough defense so far this season, and he just wasn't great. And even in some of the other matchups where he's been saved by his rushing touchdowns. So he's had a very consistent streak of 20 or more, not streak, but consistent track record of 20 or more games going back to the end of last year. It's been every game but one this season, which was the Broncos game. So it's giving credit to this defense. I mean, they've gotten to quarterbacks. They've done a great job against some pretty good ones too. Mahomes should have had over 20 fantasy points last week. He had that interception in the end zone, which would have put him over 20 points. But it's just, again, I think Baker's playing so well. We talked about this on Wednesday, number 2 quarterback in fantasy. I don't think you should be benching him outright. Like, I'm not starting Caleb Williams or Daniel Jones over him, but I am lowering my expectations. I think this is going to be a minimal type production for him. I think he barely gets over 20 points if he has a good game.
Let me throw this one at you guys and see what you think. Does it help Tampa Bay's offense that Derek Carr is out and that Spencer Rattler is starting? Meaning maybe they get a little bit more in terms of time of possession. Maybe they get more plays, and maybe that helps them add that volume that pushes Baker Mayfield, kind of what you were saying, Jamie, over the finish line of getting 20 plus.
It certainly can.
Yeah.
It certainly can. I mean, this could be a very inept Bucs offense because their strength is the running the ball. And we know the strength of the Bucs defense is stopping the run.
Sorry. You said inept Bucs
Strength of
offense.
the Saints defense, excuse me.
Saints offense.
No, I'm sorry. No, I said the right thing. Strength of the Bucs defense.
But you said
an
inept
I'm
Bucs
sorry. The
offense.
strength of the Saints offense
Yes.
is running.
No, it's
the
your
ball.
ball.
The strength of the Bucs defense is stopping the run.
Nah, the other way this could work though is if the Saints are horrible and the Bucs open up a big lead and they don't throw very much, which is definitely on my mind.
But that would mean that the Bucs running game is working, which we just have not seen very much. So this could be a low scoring game. Like, what's the total?
It's Saints are 3.5-point dogs, but the total is 41.5, which is pretty low.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that goes under.
Well, does that mean you're trying to get away from this game? Or are you trying to get away from Godwin?
I'm really not getting away from Godwin. Evans, you got to have better options just to completely sit him because there is this still potential of one play and Lattimore giving up a touchdown. He did have some touchdowns in that. I think he's got 3 touchdowns in those 12 games.
I'm going for it. Ready? Bold prediction. Huge game for Mike Evans.
Huge.
Hope so.
I mean, I thought he was beating Lattimore last year when they went head to head. And again, he had 40 yards and a half, and then he left with a hamstring injury. And I just feel like
that was in Tampa Bay, though, too, right?
I don't know.
That was early in the season, I think, when Godwin went nuts.
Yeah. The only game Godwin went nuts, basically. It's like he's their goal line back. They throw to him when they get near the end zone. So I understand where you guys are ranking it. I would be a little bit cautious too.
Honestly, the only safe start for me is Godwin. Like, I'm even nervous about Kamara. No way sitting him by any stretch. But
I agree. Higgins or Evans?
Higgins.
So is there a scenario where you would sit Kamara? Let's say you had James Conner. Let's say you had the 2 running backs in the Packers game, Conner and Jacobs.
No.
I think I have him I think I have Conner ranked ahead of him. I have Jacobs just behind him. But like Chuba Hubbard, I'd start over Kamara this week. Tony Pollard, I'm starting over Kamara this week.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't do that, especially in full PPR.
Did I ask you this, Baker or Kyler?
Kyler for me.
You didn't, but the answer is Kyler.
Okay.
Should we go over some receivers that we'd start over Evans?
Yeah, one last just real quick. Baker Mayfield or I had a good one here. Kirk Cousins at Carolina.
Cousins, easy for me.
Yeah, I got him back to back with Mayfield 1 spot ahead.
All right, who are the wide receivers you'd start over?
I warmed up to Cousins. We'll talk about that. Zay Flowers, you mentioned T. Higgins. I'd start him. Deontay Johnson had a terrible game. That's an easy start. Brian Thomas Jr., even George Pickens, even though there's some weird vibes coming out of Pittsburgh. As of now, I'd start him over Mike Evans. Terry McLaurin over Mike Evans as well.
Pickens getting the squeaky wheel.
I don't know.
I hope so.
I don't know. I just wanted to play the soundbite.
This would be the matchup for it.
I can't play Pittman's soundbite anymore, so I have to play something.
But I do have Evans over Olave.
Yeah, where's Olave? Wait, let's wrap the Bucs up. Any interest in Kate Otten this week?
The touch the field. Bye week tight end in PPR leagues.
Okay, so you talked about Kamara. Jamie's lower on Kamara than Davis. Let me just double check Heath's rankings and see if they're updated here because he has Alvin Kamara as his number 1 running back in fantasy this week.
Ooh, we are all over the map.
Yeah. All right. Rashid Shaheed has, by the way, scored 20 more non-PPR and 17 more PPR fantasy points than Chris Olave. He has more targets, yards, and touchdowns. But I think we're thinking he is such a downfield guy.
Correct.
It's just going to be hard. Rattler has a good arm, but like just the idea of him hitting Shaheed downfield is a little hard for us to see right now. So I'm sure you're sitting Shaheed. What about Olave? Dave, you can start. You just mentioned him.
He's a borderline number 2 wide receiver for me. I think that he could see his targets go up, certainly from last week, and certainly his catches too. I'm expecting get the ball out quick, rhythm passing from Rattler to these guys. And I think Olave just makes sense as his easy button, someone that he could just throw to quickly over and over again.
So right now, Olave is the bust alert and start sit because of Rattler starting. Todd Bowles is going to make Rattler very uncomfortable with all the blitz packages
For
he's going to
sure.
throw at him. However, if Shaheed is out, then we could see 10 plus targets for Olave in this game.
Oh yeah, you're right. Shaheed is on the injury report. It's a good
So
point.
I will probably remove Olave from the bust alert if Shaheed is out, just because there's just so many opportunities for him. And the one thing I do like from Rattler is he was asked about Olave. I don't know what the question was, but he said anytime he's on the field, I have to be looking for him, and that's encouraging. So where Derek Carr has sort of lost with Chris Olave is the ability to throw into some tight situations and to challenge cornerbacks. I wonder if Rattler just has that YOLO mindset of, this is my time to prove myself, and if the receivers like me, maybe I can keep the job if Derek Carr continues to not necessarily put up numbers that he's capable of putting up.
All right. Just a quick question here from Rob. How was the Bucs defense against pass catching running backs? It is bad. They give up the third most receiving yards.
Yeah,
to
this is where Kamara still wins and wins in a big way, hopefully.
Five running backs have had 29 or more receiving yards so far in 5 games against the Bucs. And you're going to sit the tight ends. If Taysom Hill plays, which doesn't look like it's going to happen, then he could always score a touchdown. Detroit is at Dallas. Dallas has 8 passing and 2 rushing touchdowns in 5 games. Detroit has 6 passing and 7 rushing touchdowns in 4 games. Dallas is 29th in run rate. Detroit is 8th. Detroit has kicked 5 field goals. Dallas has kicked 14. Huge difference among these two teams here. Detroit has run 8 more plays inside the 5-yard line than Dallas, despite playing 1 fewer game. The Cowboys have run the 5th fewest plays inside the 5-yard line. It's kind of weird. And Detroit is 6th in offensive points per game. Dallas is 13th. All right, talking about this game here. This is another one where it's like kind of like Arizona, Green Bay, where we're starting Dak, we're starting Lamb, starting Ferguson without question, starting both Detroit running backs, right? Would you start Montgomery over Kamara?
Yes.
Non-PPR, yes.
Half PPR?
Probably.
Montgomery across the board.
I've got Kamara over Montgomery in full PPR.
Okay, so start those guys. Start Amon-Ra St. Brown. So then, Dave, I guess it's kind of like that. It's like Wicks and Wilson and Dobbs, where we're talking about Jameson and Tolbert, and I guess Dowdle would be in there too. But so who are the tough calls in Dallas and Detroit?
I don't know if they're necessarily tough calls, because I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I think that we could see these wide receivers make huge plays. Williams more so than Tolbert, but they're both in line to have huge numbers. These are the exact type of bye-week replacement receivers, boom bust flex that you want to put in your lineup. I think they both have good matchups. Dallas's secondary is getting healthy, but their pass rush, man, it's right down to nothing. And that's just going to help Jared Goff have another efficient game.
So why aren't you guys higher on Goff then? Because you have Dak as top 6 quarterback, but Goff you have I think outside your top 12. Yeah, outside your top 12.
He's 13th for me. I just like a bunch of quarterbacks this week. We'll see how some of the injuries to the receivers maybe change some things. So, what I was talking about Baker and Jameis, and Caleb and Daniel Jones, like Goff is right in between them. So higher ceiling this week. I think Goff has a higher ceiling than Baker. I'm just counting on Baker's track record to be a little bit safer than Goff, because we know this run game is fantastic for the Lions, and the run defense for Dallas is awful. So this could easily be a huge game for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I do think that this is potentially a breakout game for Sam Laporta. You saw him finally get a little bit more involved in their last game against Seattle with 4 catches, 43 yards, I think 5 targets, if I'm not mistaken. No, it couldn't be 4 targets because Goff was perfect. And he's getting healthier. I don't think we gave enough credit to that hamstring injury that he dealt with in the preseason. That he missed all that time and a little sluggish to start the season. So this is a good buy low opportunity for Laporta. I don't think you're starting him over any of the top tight ends that have been playing. And I know, for example, I picked up Tucker Kraft. I'm starting Kraft over him still, just because I think Kraft deserves that based on how he's performed and the matchup that he has against Arizona. But it would not surprise me if Laporta has a breakout game this week. And that's where sort of Goff starts to evolve a little bit more. That, unfortunately, will probably come at the expense of Jameson Williams, because, as you said, Adam, we've seen 5 targets from him the last 2 weeks, where the games before that it was 9+ in the first 2. And so
it hasn't really been because of Laporta yet.
Correct. but it also has been because David Montgomery. It's been because of Tim Patrick. It's been because of a little bit Jahmyr Gibbs, which unfortunately still needs a little bit more in the passing game. But
Jahmyr Gibbs does not have a target in 2 straight games.
I was about to get into this. Yeah.
I don't think there's a rhyme or reason. Put it that way. There's not a rhyme or reason.
They've talked about that. There's big games coming for him. So you wonder coming off the bye week if we just start to see the unleashing of Jahmyr Gibbs. I do like their. Did you hear what David Montgomery said their nickname is?
No.
Sonic and Knuckles.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Which one's which?
Yeah, no, that's good.
No.
I like that. All right,
No.
so
Quick thing on Laporta. He's got a catch of 20+ yards in each of his last 2 games. Like I think Jamie's onto something, and certainly
game of the week. Yeah,
I was wondering if this was it.
Lions and the Cowboys. Of course, it's the game of the week.
All right.
Game of the week. Hey! All right.
I was literally just about to text you, like, what the hell are you doing?
And I'm sitting here thinking, what other game could it possibly be? Or is he going to somehow throw the Ravens and Commanders in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you were going to go with, but you did get it in. And this is the game that I was hoping that you would say.
There you go. All right, let me read some questions here. We're going to talk about Rico Dowdle. Odunze or Tolbert?
Tolbert.
Jamison Williams or Chase Brown?
Chase Brown. Yeah.
Rico Dowdle or Chase Brown or Joe Mixon in non-PPR? I need 2.
If everybody's healthy, Rico's the odd man out.
One other thing on these receivers for Detroit. How many passes has Jared Goff thrown in the last 2 weeks? Like, this is why he's not top 12 for me.
41.
41 combined, and he went 18 for 18 because the whole world plastered it on social media. It was cool.
And he went 18 for 23. He's completed 88% of his passes and averaged 12 yards per attempt in his last 2 games, which is why I think I'm going to start him over Baker Mayfield.
Ooh. I don't hate the rationale for it. I just would rather have the quarterback who I think will throw more and certainly will throw more inside the 10, inside the 5.
Okay, I
haven't know what Detroit's doing when they get down there.
I haven't made that decision yet. I'm leading that way, but
all right. But hopefully Jared Goff throws, I don't know, 30 times. That would be great if it's a high-scoring game. And then there's enough to go around for everybody, including the targetless Jahmyr Gibbs.
I mean, look, give Dallas credit. They went into Pittsburgh in miserable weather, and I think everybody kind of wrote them off that, okay, this is going to be a tough game for them because Pittsburgh's defense is so great. And Dak had 350, 2-2, and if that offense shows up, which we know they're capable of, it's great offense, then we see a shootout, which is what everybody's hoping for.
All right, where do you have Rico Dowdle ranked?
Borderline number 2 running back for me.
There was an ESPN article about the Cowboys. Offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer said that Rico Dowdle's game against the Steelers was his most disciplined of the season. If anything, Dowdle just needs to maybe slow down, and that comes with experience, McCarthy said. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of an interesting thing. This guy's really still learning, and slowing down is important. You don't just run. You got to set up your blocks, and I guess he did a very good job with his discipline against the Steelers.
Sure, and he's clearly become their number 1 running back, and it's not Zeke who's playing on passing downs. It's their fullback, Lipke. But he's the one who's actually playing on third downs, and he gets a little bit of work. So I wonder if they start to write Zeke off a little bit, and it's down to 2 guys. Kind of like what Chicago.
There was video of him in the locker room with the rain delay last week, struggling to put on his shoulder pads, and somebody suggested maybe there's a shoulder injury going on there.
Okay. Well, we got to wrap up here. This is a tough matchup. Lions are 3rd best against running backs, and they give up the 4th fewest receiving yards per game to running backs. So Dowdle's going to be on a low end starter, but ahead of Trey Sermon, right?
For me,
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. Atlanta's at Carolina. Stat of the game number 1. I already gave.
This isn't the game of the week.
4 game. This actually could be a good game. 4 wide receivers.
I agree.
Lead the NFL with 8 catches of 20 or more yards. They are Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Jaden Reed, and Darnell Mooney. And stat of the game number 2 is that, look at the other side of the ball, lead wide receivers have done very well against Atlanta. Pickens, Devontae Smith, Rashee Rice, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. They all had more than 76 or more yards, and then Mike Evans had 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it looks like a great matchup for Deontay. Are we going right back to Deontay?
Right back. Yep.
Okay, great. And then Mooney, London, everyone's going to start. Starter sit Darnell Mooney. How does he compare to Tolbert and Williams and Wicks and all those guys?
Ahead.
I've got Tolbert ahead of Mooney.
All right, but I'm loving what I'm seeing from Mooney. He's right there in targets on the team, and he's not like he's a downfield guy, but not like a super downfield boomer bust kind of guy. He's got 40 targets, leads the team in yards per catch, 5th in explosive play rate, plays in the slot 32% of the time, so he's not going to get shut down by corners or anything. And it's a really good start. And then there was an ESPN article about him and the chemistry he has with Kirk Cousins.
Remember back in the preseason, right before the season started, when you didn't run waivers the right way?
Yeah. By the way, just a little sleeper shout out here to Ray McLeod. 5 or more targets in 4 of 5 games, 7 or more targets in 3 of 5 games. 6% rostered.
Can we put the targets from last week in perspective, though?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, this is the opposite of what we were saying with Detroit's passing game. Kirk Cousins threw 58 times. I don't think he's going to have to throw 38 times and maybe not even 28 times against Carolina. And Carolina's bad. And there's no question that Cousins can still get to good numbers. We've seen other quarterbacks with low pass volume get good numbers against Carolina. That can happen. And I don't mind London, but I wonder a little bit about Mooney. Could he go back to what he was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, since last week he was great? 6 targets, 3 catches, 56 yards, no touchdowns. Okay. And the week before that, 8 targets. He caught them all for 66 yards. So I have a little bit of pause on Darnell Mooney. I think he can be a great number 3 receiver, but I don't want to rush him too high up the rank list.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but you can apply the same thing to Jalen Tolbert and the same thing to Jameson Williams.
By the way, you know where he says
I think that those guys will be in a high scoring game where their quarterbacks will throw a lot. Certainly in the case of Tolbert, maybe a little less so in the case of
right. But just in terms of not rushing these guys up the flagpole, it's a 1-game sample size for Jalen Tolbert, whereas Mooney at least has given you 4 games of pretty great production. Okay.
By the way, Heath has Darnell Mooney 11th. How do you rank the running backs in this game? Is it Bijan over Hubbard or what?
I've got Bijan over Hubbard.
I do too, but look, Hubbard's been awesome. There's no reason to go away from him.
Yeah, he's been terrific. And start Kirk Cousins, but tell me, Jamie, why you're pumped about Cousins.
He's getting healthy. He's getting comfortable. He's starting to look like the guy the Falcons were hoping that they would get when they signed him to this deal. And you have 3 receiving options that are, playing well. Give Pitts some credit for the game that he's coming off of, where they finally got him involved. And you see what he's capable of when he's doing stuff like that. So the matchup is fantastic. Dave said it. It doesn't take a lot of pass attempts to have success against this team. There's only one quarterback that's been sub 20 fantasy points against them, and that's Justin Herbert, who's just not going to give you those type of numbers. So just based on Adam, what did you say about Caleb Williams? He was not playing very well, and then here comes Carolina. So it's just one of those situations where, with the way these guys are performing right now, with London and Mooney and Pitts, and look, the run game should get going, but what if it doesn't? What if it's really an Atlanta problem that they can't run the ball? And then it's back to Kirk Cousins.
No, I don't even want you to speak it into existence.
So I'm not sitting a guy coming off of the game that he just had when he says himself he's starting to feel better after a pretty significant injury.
Carolina's allowed at least 20 fantasy points to Joe Burrow, Derek Carr, and Caleb Williams. Who had the most pass attempts of those 3, and how many was it?
It's either Williams or Burrow, because it certainly wasn't Carr.
It wasn't Carr. I'm going to say Burrow with 29.
Jamie, your guess?
Williams.
Williams had 29. Burrow had 31.
Bang. We both were right. And
here's the other thing. I think Carolina can put up some points. We like Chuba Hubbard. We're going right back to Deontay Johnson. I know that the offensive line is an issue for Carolina, but I don't know if the Falcons pass rush is great. On paper, it looks good, but I don't think they have a lot of sacks this year.
Oh, they have the fewest in football.
Yeah, so that would tell you not great. So I think that we will see Carolina kind of force the issue a little bit. I will take over on 31 pass attempts for Kirk Cousins in this game.
Okay, so just real quick, league ed, is he a top 36 guy this week?
No,
he's outside of there for me.
Kyle Pitts or Dallas Goedert?
Pitts.
Kyle Pitts or Tucker Kraft?
Kraft.
Kraft.
And from the chat, Andy Dalton or Trevor Lawrence?
Oh, that's gross. You can't get your hands on Daniel Jones, huh?
Well, look,
I've got Dalton for now.
2 starters are out for the Bears. If Bijan Robinson does not play, and by the way, you guys have him as a top 7 running back. Heath has him in the 12th. If Bijan doesn't play for some reason, Algier 65% rostered. Bijan keeps showing up with injuries, so not a bad idea to get Tyler Algier. Would he enter? He'd be a must start, right?
Top 15 running back, easy.
Yeah.
And he's the one who's been running well in this outside zone scheme. He's not a better running back than Bijan, but he understands what he's being asked to do more so than Bijan. And this is a thing with Bijan that goes back to college. Like I went and studied what he did in college, and he was better in gap scheme runs than zone scheme runs there too.
From the chat, Cousins or Stroud?
Cousins. That's changed for me. I started the week with Stroud over Cousins.
From the chat, Deontay Johnson or T. Higgins, half PPR?
Deontay.
Agreed.
All right. Let's go to our next game. Oh, Falcons DST is in play. 9th for Jamie, 4th for Dave, 9th for Heath. Cincinnati is at the Giants. I already gave the stat of the game. The Giants are 1-14 in primetime games since Daniel Jones became the starting quarterback. According to the Bergen record, though, they've been underdogs in 14 of those 15 games. And they are underdogs again, 3.5-point favorites, Cincinnati on the road. Joe Burrow is a top 3 quarterback for you. So far he hasn't been good on the road, but I went back and I looked, and he's got something like 12 30-point games in his career, and 5 of them have been on the road, so he can do it on the road too. I gotta say though, like the Giants defense really hasn't been that bad. They lead the NFL in sacks. No Kayvon Thibodeau is a big deal.
Yep.
But like, is there any hesitation with? We could be quick here. Any hesitation with the Bengals offensively?
No. None.
Okay. So then it's really, because Higgins is double-digit targets 2 straight games. Chase is Chase. Then it's really the running backs here. And Jamie, why don't you just lay it out? If they both play, I know you did this earlier in the show, but real quick, if they both play and if one of them misses, what are you thinking here against the Giants, who have given up 5 yards per carry to running backs?
Right now, Chase Brown is a top 10 running back for me because I do not have Zach Moss ranked. If Moss plays, Chase Brown goes to around running back like 18 to 20 in that range. Moss would be a high-end flex. If Brown is out, then Moss would be around running back 15, just because I think Chase Brown running a little bit better than Moss showed us earlier this season. But clearly there's huge opportunity for either one if the other one is out.
Okay. And I don't even think we should, but we can do it, but because why not? But if Devin Singletary were out, where would Tyrone Tracy be? I mean, I don't think he's going to be. Where would Tyrone Tracy
I started the week with Tracy at running back 17. So he was right around, mid-range number 2 running back if there is no Devin Singletary.
Right. Think about all the unappealing number 2 running backs there are out there.
Nah, just kidding. I'm really pumped for this game.
It should be a fun one.
I think you've got a chance to win.
I wish I could go. I want to go so badly. I want to go.
Go.
I can't go. I got a show. I want to bring a towel. Like I want to get.
You have really some.
Bring a towel to a football game.
Like a towel to wave, like one of those white towels. Just like
it's a hell of a week for New York sports.
I think I'm going to go to the Yankees. I think I'm going to go to the Yankees on Monday. So yeah.
Giants Sunday night, Jets Monday night.
Yeah.
Both baseball teams in the LCS. That's pretty impressive.
Don't forget about the Liberty. Aren't they in the final?
Liberty in the final? Yeah, that's right. Good call.
Here we go. All right. So anyway, Dave, what the hell were you saying?
Oh my God, how'd they blow that game?
Dave, talk about Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton.
They are going to be outstanding options, at least as number 2 wide receivers in PPR, if there is no Malik Neighbors. You know what to expect from Wan'Dale already. Tons of targets, short area guy, hoping that he scores a touchdown on top of it all. But even if he doesn't, minimum 15 PPR points, that feels like his floor. And Slayton's got the upside because he can be a downfield threat on top of being a short and mid-range target like we saw last week. And this Bengals defense, they've got a good pass rush, not a great one, but everything else is really suspect.
So if Neighbors is out, which wide receiver do you like better for the Giants?
I have Wan'Dale higher in PPR. I might have Slayton higher in non. I should have Slayton higher.
Yep.
And I'll say the Bengals have allowed 15 or more PPR fantasy points to 4 wide receivers in their last 2 games. Deontay, Liggett, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. All 4 of them had 8 or more targets, and they're missing Dax Hill. But one thing I found interesting was Daniel Jones. He threw only 3 passes from 10 to 20 air yards last week on 34 pass attempts. It's like it's all short stuff, and then there's the deep ball, then some intermediate stuff. But I don't love that. But that's probably getting a little bit too into the weeds. So Daniel Jones is
what's making Wan'Dale so good.
Yeah. Daniel Jones is 14th for you guys. Justin Fields or Daniel Jones?
Jones.
Started the week with Fields ahead of Jones. I've moved that to Jones over Fields.
CJ Stroud or Daniel Jones?
Stroud.
Agreed.
Jared Goff or Daniel Jones?
Goff.
I have Stroud, Jones, Goff back to back to back, Jack.
Oh, okay. And
Two sleeper tight ends in this game if Gesicki's out.
yeah, I
He
guess
was limited on Thursday, so I don't know if there's really a shot of him being out. But Eric All should be on the radar. Dynasty leaguers already know about him.
Oh, he's rostered in all those.
Yeah, of course.
And Theo Johnson.
I already know about him.
Theo Johnson's coming off 5 for 48 on 5 targets. But yeah, whatever. Houston's at New England. Stat of the game number 1. Nico Collins has accounted for 38.4% of CJ Stroud's yards and 3 of his 7 touchdowns. That's insane. Stat of the game number 2. I love this. Hopefully. Well, I love it for Mixon. The Patriots have allowed 80 rushing yards or a touchdown to 7 running backs in 5 games. Woo! I know, right? It's amazing. They got destroyed by the Dolphins run game last week. But anyway, Jamie,
run game without Achan.
Yeah. And yeah, their fullback, Alec Ingle, was just crushing people. Jamie, what do you think about the Texans passing game this week?
Diggs is a must-start guy without Nico there. I mean, he's been a must-start guy with Nico there.
Y'all.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Dave has to do a radio hit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got to leave soon, too, if you want me to make the mailbag.
Same. Jeez.
So Diggs is a must-start guy. Tank Dell is number 3 receiver. Dalton Schultz is a borderline starting tight end, better in PPR than none.
Go back to this real quick. What about the DSTs for Bengals-Giants? I missed that from Eric.
I mean, desperation play, I think, for either team. More so the Bengals, I think, than the Giants, just because you're hoping Daniel Jones can maybe have some turnovers. But look, he's played well, and the Bengals defense stinks.
Yeah. All right. Joe Mixon would be
better option than those 2 teams.
Joe Mixon would be an easy start if he plays.
100%.
And if he doesn't play, like I kind of want to avoid it because I don't know what the
I would try to avoid it if you can, but Ogunbowale would still be my favorite because I think he still plays on passing downs over Pierce. I think just Pierce steps into Akers' role and Akers becomes nothing.
I wish you guys were higher on Tank Dell, but I understand that he's around 30th. We talked about him a lot yesterday, today. Dalton Schultz is interesting. You have him 15th. 13th, I think, in PPR. The Patriots have allowed 11.2 or more PPR fantasy points to a tight end in 3 straight games. Conklin, Kittle, and Jonnu Smith. And Schultz, I had a stat on that. Schultz, he had 6 targets without Nico Collins last week. That's pretty good.
And the game before without Dell.
Oh, good point. But the 6 targets, so all 6 of those targets came after the Nico Collins injury. On the Patriots side of the ball, I'm assuming it's just the running backs we're thinking about here. And let's say Mixon is out, but Ramondre is in. Is Ramondre easily the best running back in this game?
Mixon out, Ramondre in, yes. Mixon out, Ramondre out, Gibson would be my favorite running back in this game.
Is Ramondre going to crack your top 20?
No, he's just outside it right now.
Dowdle or Ramondre?
Ramondre.
Raymond says, if Mixon sits, should I start Dameon Pierce or Cam Akers?
Pierce, if that's your choice.
But if Cook sits, then get Ray Davis and start him over those guys?
There's no guarantee Davis is the guy, but I would lean that way, yes.
Right, take a shot there. All right.
I did build a fun DFS lineup before our show started with Drake May and Jalen Polk as a stack.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, trying to hit some big, right?
Right. Polk plays every snap. You never know. I think May could be sort of like Will Levis, where you're going to get turnovers, you're going to get bad plays, but you're also going to get a gunslinger.
A little bit of wow mentality.
Absolutely. But that being said, Jamie has Houston DST, I think, number 1 overall.
Yes. Well, I mean, look, they're still a very good defense. I know they haven't performed, I think, up to expectations, and they are on the road, but it's still a rookie quarterback with very limited weapons.
And that is it for today's show. Finally, we'll talk to you in an hour for the mailbag if I can get this show edited by then. We'll see you later, everybody.